There comes a moment in every person's life when they stop in the middle of everything, in the middle of their routines, their ambitions, their noise, and suddenly feel a strange distance from the world around them. You might have felt it too. That quiet hesitation inside you when you're trying to act normal in a world that moves too fast, speaks too loudly, and expects too much. Most people ignore that feeling. They push it away, call it overthinking, or bury it under distractions. But you didn't. You noticed it. You felt the subtle fracture between who you are and who the world keeps telling you to be. And the truth is this, that fracture is not a flaw. It is an awakening. The earliest sign that your mind is trying to evolve. You see, the majority of people walk through life reacting. They chase after appearances, approval, and noise. They move so quickly that they never actually meet themselves. But there is a rare kind of person, maybe you, whose mind simply refuses to live on autopilot. When others rush towards stimulation, you pull back. When others need crowds, you need truth. When others crave distraction, you crave clarity. And for years, you may have thought something was wrong with you. Why do loud environments make you feel disconnected? Why does small talk drain your spirit? Why do other people appear to find comfort in what makes you quietly uneasy? It took a long time for you to realize the real answer. You are not resisting the world. You are sensing it more deeply than most people ever will. Think about it. There's a part of you that observes life rather than simply participating in it. When you walk into a room, you don't just see people, you feel them. Their body language, their hidden tension, their shifting emotional currents. You can sense when someone is pretending to be fine. You hear what others don't say. You notice what others overlook. This isn't weakness. It's heightened perception. The kind that only develops when the mind is not numbed by noise. But here's the paradox. Being able to sense more means you carry more. And that weight is invisible unless someone else knows how to see it. There are moments when you look around and wonder how everyone else seems so unaffected by life. The chaos, the pressure, the expectations. It all feels like static that never stops buzzing in your ear. And while everyone else shrugs it off, it sticks to you. You carry it home. You feel it in your chest. You ask yourself, why does the world exhaust me so easily? But you never ask the real question. Why does the world exhaust me so deeply? The truth is, your mind doesn't skim the surface of reality. It dives straight into its depths. Where others take things lightly, you feel them fully. Where others forget instantly, you process endlessly. Where others escape through noise, you seek meaning. This is not the mind of a weak person. This is the mind of someone becoming conscious. There's a silent transformation happening inside you. A shift from reacting to reflecting, from being shaped by the world to shaping your own understanding of it. Think back to all the times you felt out of place. All the times people told you to just relax, stop overthinking, or be like everyone else. They didn't realize what they were asking. They wanted you to shrink, to fit into the small frame they considered normal. But you weren't designed for that. Your mind was built to question, to observe, to feel, to understand. And those abilities, though often misunderstood, are the foundation of inner strength. People rarely talk about the courage it takes to feel deeply in a world that encourages emotional numbness. They don't realize the discipline required to remain self-aware in a culture built on distraction. They don't see how exhausting it is to constantly process what others never even notice. You've spent years carrying emotional weights that were invisible to everyone else. But here's the part nobody ever told you. The very trait that made you feel different is the trait that will make you powerful, because the people who feel the world intensely are the ones who eventually learn how to understand it. The people who question themselves are the ones who eventually find themselves. The people who distance themselves from noise are the ones who eventually hear truth. Your quiet nature is not emptiness, it is refinement. Your sensitivity is not fragility, it is perception. Your solitude is not isolation, it is transformation. But transformation always begins with discomfort. Your old self resists the shift. Your habits try to pull you backward. Your mind argues with itself, unsure whether to evolve or retreat. That's why you've been feeling this internal tension. The sense that something in you wants to break free while something else wants to stay the same. This is the tension every person faces the moment they begin awakening from the life they've been conditioned to live. Your old identity whispers, "Stay who you've always been." Your new identity calls, "Become who you're meant to be." And now you stand exactly between those two voices. This inner conflict is not a sign of confusion, it is proof that growth is happening. Because before every transformation, there is a quiet dismantling. Your assumptions dissolve, your illusions weaken, your patterns crack, your old self starts losing its grip. You're not falling apart, you're shedding, like every person who outgrows their first version of themselves. And that is why the world suddenly feels too loud, too shallow, too chaotic. Not because you're fragile, but because you're evolving past everything that once kept you asleep. This discomfort is your signal, your invitation, your threshold to a deeper life. By the time you reach the end of this journey, you'll understand the truth that few people ever discover, that growth doesn't begin when life becomes easier. It begins when you become aware. Session 1 ends here. If this beginning resonates with you, even slightly, like the video so more people can begin their own transformation. There is a moment in every inner journey when awareness turns into confrontation, not with the world, but with yourself. Session 1 opened the door, but walking through it requires something deeper. The willingness to see what you've spent years avoiding, not because you were weak, but because you were human. You see, your old self didn't form out of nowhere. It was built piece by piece, experience by experience, moment by moment, often without your permission. The world taught you who to belong before you ever learned how to think for yourself. It trained you to blend in, to please, to obey, to suppress. It molded you into a version it could understand. But the person you are becoming, the person you feel rising inside you, that version isn't interested in fitting in, it's interested in truth. And truth is never quiet. Think back to your childhood, not the memories you show others, but the ones that live beneath your skin. The ones that taught you to stay small. The ones that taught you to hide your emotions, to smile even when your spirit was collapsing inward. To pretend everything was fine, even when you felt something breaking inside your chest. Most people carry these hidden instructions into adulthood without ever realizing they're still obeying them. Speak softly. Don't upset anyone. Don't be too different. Don't show too much emotion. Don't reveal too much truth. And above all, don't stand out. These rules weren't spoken, they were absorbed, and they shaped you in ways you never fully questioned. Until now. Because when you began noticing that the world felt too loud, too shallow, too chaotic, you weren't reacting to life. You were reacting to the tension between who you became and who you were meant to be. This friction is not accidental, it's necessary. It's the catalyst of every deep transformation. The mind rarely evolves in comfort. It evolves when something inside you becomes too tight, too limiting, too outdated for the person you're slowly becoming. And that's exactly why you've been feeling this restless pull, the sense that your current life doesn't match your inner truth anymore. But here's the part most people never understand. Transformation doesn't begin by adding something new. It begins by letting go of what no longer belongs to you. The expectations you inherited, the fears you adopted, the beliefs you absorbed from people who didn't even understand themselves, the patterns you repeated because they once kept you safe, the identity you built out of necessity, not authenticity. These layers, these invisible psychological shells, once protected you. They kept you stable. They helped you survive. But now, they trap you. And the deeper you grow, the more those old layers begin to suffocate the person you're becoming. That suffocation is not failure. It is the sensation of outgrowing what no longer fits. It's the same feeling a snake experiences before shedding its skin. It's the same pressure a seed feels before breaking open. It's the same resistance a butterfly faces when it pushes against the cocoon. Growth is uncomfortable because it requires leaving behind the identity that kept you alive in a previous chapter. And that's where you are right now. Between chapters, between identities, between versions of yourself, there are two forces inside you: the familiar self that wants stability, and the emerging self that wants freedom. The familiar self says, stay where it's safe. The emerging self whispers, but you are capable of more. You're not confused. You're transitioning. This is the psychological tension every conscious person faces when they begin awakening. Most people retreat from this discomfort. They run back to old habits, old distractions, old identities. They fear the unknown more than they fear remaining unchanged. But you didn't stop. You didn't run. You didn't numb yourself. You stayed. You listened. You faced the quiet. And that decision, that small internal act of courage, is what separates growth from stagnation. Because the moment you allow silence into your life, the mind begins revealing what you once buried. Old patterns rise to the surface. Emotions you ignored begin speaking in a language you can no longer silence. Memories echo. Instincts awaken. Your subconscious, the part of you that has been watching your entire life unfold, finally steps forward and asks one question. Are you ready to let go? Letting go is not about forgetting. It's not about erasing who you were. It's about releasing the version of yourself that was built for survival, so you can become the version built for meaning. You're not losing anything real. You're shedding illusions. You're removing psychological armor you no longer need. You're rewriting the script of your life with a clarity you never had before. That clarity is dangerous, not to you, but to your old identity. Because once you see the truth, you can never go back to living blindly. Once you understand why something feels wrong, you can no longer pretend it feels right. Once you recognize your deeper nature, pretending to be someone else becomes impossible. Your transformation is no longer optional, it is inevitable. But there is another truth you must face. Awareness alone is not enough. You cannot simply understand your old patterns, you must challenge them. You cannot simply notice your wounds, you must confront their origins. You cannot simply sense your potential, you must step into it. And this next step will require something the world rarely teaches: inner responsibility. The responsibility to question your beliefs, the responsibility to unlearn what shaped you, the responsibility to rebuild yourself from the inside out. Not for approval, not for validation, not to impress anyone, but because you finally know you deserve a life that reflects who you truly are. The gaps you feel inside yourself are not weaknesses, they are invitations. Invitations to become someone more conscious, someone more authentic, someone more aligned with their own truth. Your old self fears this. Your new self depends on it. And the person who sits between these two selves, the one listening right now, is the bridge. Your transformation begins the moment you stop asking, "What will others think?" and start asking, "What do I know is true?" You're getting closer to that truth, closer to the person you were always meant to become, closer to the life that finally feels like it belongs to you. The real shift happens in session 3. For now, if you're ready to continue this journey of inner evolution, subscribe to the quiet paradox so you don't miss the next step. There is a point in every transformation when awareness becomes action. The first session opened your eyes. The second revealed the weight you've been carrying. But this is where the internal shift becomes a new way of living. This is where the old self loosens its grip and the emerging self begins to rise. But before anything new can take root inside you, there is one final truth you must confront. The truth that no one teaches, no one explains, and yet it shapes every decision, every pattern, every silent struggle you've lived with. You're not broken. You were simply never taught how to grow. Think about it. Traditional success, traditional strength, traditional lives, they all revolve around performance, being efficient, being productive, being socially polished. But nobody teaches you how to understand yourself. Nobody teaches you how to decode your internal signals, how to process emotional wounds, or how to recognize when your soul is trying to evolve. So you learned how to function, but you never learned how to become. Inside you, there has always been a deeper intelligence, something quiet, instinctive, unpolished, but unmistakably real. You felt it when you questioned things others accepted. You sensed it when you noticed truths others ignored. You carried it when you felt disconnected from the world but deeply connected to yourself. That inner intelligence is your compass. It has been guiding you long before you understood its language. And the reason life has felt heavy, confusing, or misaligned isn't because you lack strength, but because you've been living by the wrong compass. You've been following the expectations of others while ignoring the truth inside you. But now you see the internal friction clearly. Now you understand why you feel torn. Now you recognize the voice of your deeper self. The question is no longer, "What's wrong with me?" The question is, "What part of me is trying to evolve?" Every hesitation you felt, every moment of restlessness, every wave of discomfort, they were not signs of weakness. They were signals, warnings, messages. Your mind's way of saying, "This version of life no longer fits." Growth is uncomfortable because your old identity wants certainty, while your new identity needs expansion. The two cannot coexist forever. One of them must rise. But here's the paradox of transformation. Your old self isn't the enemy. It protected you. It helped you survive. It carried you through chapters you were never prepared for. That version of you deserves gratitude, not resentment. But just because something protected you once doesn't mean it's meant to lead you forever. A shell protects a seed, but it must break for growth to happen. The cocoon shelters the caterpillar, but it becomes a prison once the wings are ready. So ask yourself with honesty, has the life you've built become a cocoon that is now too tight for who you are becoming? Because the truth is, you already know the answer. The signs were always there. The quiet dissatisfaction you ignored. The moments when you felt disconnected from everyone around you. The inner voice that whispered that you were meant for something more aligned, more intentional, more true. You didn't imagine those moments. They were the beginning of your awakening. Awakening isn't dramatic, it begins in whispers. A shift in how you see relationships, a new clarity in what drains you, an unexpected burst of honesty about your habits, an unwillingness to tolerate what once felt normal. Awakening begins the moment you realize you cannot return to who you were. But the deeper transformation, the kind that reshapes your entire life, begins when you take responsibility for who you will become. And responsibility isn't punishment, it's power. The power to choose your boundaries, the power to heal your emotional wounds, the power to rewrite the beliefs that shaped you, the power to walk away from patterns that suffocate your growth, the power to protect your peace even when others don't understand it. The power to build a life that matches your inner truth instead of your outer obligations. This is the moment you stop waiting for permission to evolve. Because no external authority can tell you who you're meant to be. No crowd can validate your inner world. No relationship can fill the space created by your own neglect. No achievement can replace the absence of self-understanding. You're beginning to see clearly now. You are the only person who can decide your direction. And that realization is not overwhelming. It is liberating. But let's be honest. Growth will require something from you. Not perfection, not flawlessness, not fearlessness. It requires something far simpler, far more honest. A willingness to take the next step even when you don't feel ready. Because no one ever feels ready. No one ever feels fully confident. No one ever feels completely certain. Growth begins with a small, almost fragile commitment. Tomorrow, I'll be 1% more aligned with who I truly am. And that 1% compounds. That 1% becomes momentum. That momentum becomes identity. And that identity becomes your new life. Your journey is not about becoming a different person. It's about peeling away everything that isn't you. Until the truth of who you've always been stands without apology. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right on time for the life that was waiting for you to wake up. Look at how far you've already come. You faced the noise within you. You peeled back the layers of your old self. You survived the discomfort of awareness. You witnessed the truth behind your pain. And now, you stand on the edge of becoming. So here is the final invitation, the turning point of this entire journey. Will you honor the person you were while stepping into the person you were meant to become? Will you allow life to unfold through intention rather than fear? Will you build habits that reflect your future instead of your past? Will you choose depth over distraction, truth over noise, alignment over approval? Only you can answer that. And your answer will shape the rest of your life. Before we end, I want you to do one thing, not for me, but for yourself. Leave a comment and tell me one truth you realized about yourself during this journey. Not a performance, not something polished, just the real answer. Because the moment you speak your truth, even in one sentence, the transformation becomes real.